One-handed catch. Oh, he's got it!
Welcome to the cockpit. My name's Ryan, and I'll be your pilot tonight. Woo, sorry, boys and girls. I am coughing up a storm. Our poor Jets in shambles right now. We don't know what's going on. Thank you for tuning in. If you guys haven't been to a call-in show before, we're going to start our call-ins at 8:30. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock after 3 minutes.
That's it. You're out of here.
That's right. You get the chicken. So make sure you have your thoughts composed. I want to talk about a whole bunch of stuff tonight. Whole bunch of stuff to get into. But before we get into that, if you guys want to help support the channel, go to Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code JETS247. Get yourself 100% first-time deposit match up to $100. Help support the channel. And you can do some cool over-unders, higher lowers, prop contests. You bet like $5, you can win $200 on some really good stuff. It's a lot of fun. But if you'd like to do that, head on over, link in the description down below. I want to talk a little bit Tim Boyle starting versus the Falcons. We can talk a little bit about the draft, offensive tackle, quarterback. What should we do? Where should the Jets go? Breece Hall needing to get the tough yards. Do you think the criticism from Robert Saleh was fair? Do you think maybe it's misguided? How you feeling about that? Aaron Rodgers wanting to return this year, regardless of whether or not the Jets are in it or not. And he's targeting Christmas Eve, December 24th against the Commanders, the final home game for the Jets, to do it. I want to hear your thoughts on that. And does anyone at the end of the season, maybe in season, get canned? There's a live poll in the chat. Who should get fired, Douglas, Saleh, or no one? I'm omitting Hackett from this poll because I think he's here because of Rodgers. So I don't know if that's necessarily realistic. But I do like where this poll is headed so far, because I would lean the same way. We'll check back in on that before we go to the phones at 8:30. Let's talk a little Tim Boyle. I guess I shouldn't talk Tim Boyle. Should we talk game? Let's talk the game first. What the hell? What do the Jets do? Where do we go from here? Tim Boyle's going to be our starting quarterback versus the Falcons. And, like, I don't think Jet fans were claiming Tim Boyle was going to be the savior beyond, like, Zach Wilson. Like, Zach Wilson getting benched. This wasn't the save-all, end-all. It was just sort of the, I don't know. I don't know why you don't make Simeon the second-string or the first-string quarterback, really. I don't think Boyle should have ever been in a position to be the quarterback, but I think what's happening is they're going to trot Boyle out there the next 2 or 3 games. Then they're going to be like, all right, it's not going to work. Tim Boyle. Let's bench him. Let's go to quarterback number 3. We're going to go to Trevor Siemian. We're going to go to Trevor Siemian, and we're going to test him out. And it's not going to be Hackett's problem. It's going to be Tim Boyle's fault. Then it's going to be Trevor Siemian's fault. But then it's going to be, oh, don't worry, Aaron Rodgers is back. He saves the day. That's how I think this is going to go. I think they're trying to protect Hackett. I think there is a solid justification for Rodgers coming back at the end of this year, too. Now, I do not want to see him come back. I would rather him sit out the rest of the year because I think they can deal with the heat without him here, or not without him here, but just like in a locker room, sideline type capacity. I don't think he has to be on the field to have the impact that he needs to have. But if he's dead set on coming back, there's some benefits that come with it. There are some legitimate benefits that come with it. You get to see this offense with Rodgers, assuming he's not too hampered by the recovery. You get to see him for 3 games. Those are cold weather games, too. New England, MetLife, Ohio, all late December, early January. How does his body respond to all that? How does this offense look with him at the helm, behind this offensive line, with these weapons? I don't want to see him get hit. First time this O-line cracks. And Aaron Rodgers is like, oh no, what's going on? This guy's coming. No, get him out of the game. Put him in bubble wrap. I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers in another game. But if they do put him in, I think there's a lot we can learn at the very least if we do see him in there. I just think the risk is too high that he gets injured. Now, as far as Tim Boyle starting against the Falcons, this could be a clunker of a game. This could be absolutely brutal to watch. Absolutely brutal. Why do I waste my time? Why do I waste my Sundays or Fridays? Luckily, I was in a food coma for the majority of the day. I just sort of sat back. That dude, Jets Dolphins. 10-6 with one play left before half. Jets in that game. Jets are in that game. I don't mind going for the Hail Mary. I really don't. Man, that sucks. that really sucks. Like, you can't have worse luck. We got the butt fumble. We got the fake spike. We've got the Hail Mary now. It just sucks. I want to not have this shit happen to us on primetime standalone games. I don't want to see this happen. I like the swing at the end of the half. Dolphins getting the ball back at half. 99% chance that's not getting returned. 99% chance. Or extremely low, whatever the percentage, that's going to get returned for a touchdown. Under most circumstances. There's usually someone there to smack it down. Boyle couldn't get to the end zone. Dude, super frustrated. Because I think the Jets played well for the first half. And then you go into the second half and it's just a fucking clusterfuck. Offense can't do anything. You can't move on from the offensive coordinator because he's your quarterback's best friend who's coming off an Achilles injury. This is like, some Jet fans are definitely spiraling. I'm on the cusp of spiraling. I'm trying to be optimistic, but every time I get optimistic, the Jets, like, Lucy pulls the football away from me. Every time. It's like, don't worry, this time's different. It's not going to happen. I'm going to kick that football. Nope. Aaron Rodgers hurt. Nope. Punt, return, touchdown. Nope. Interception, touchdown. Just can't have nice things. Can't have nice things. Dolphins, they're a good team. Tyreek Hill's fast, Waddle's fast, Mostert's fast. Tua's accurate. They're going to win the division. As far as the Jets' rest of the season, what do I want to do? Am I rooting for a tank or am I rooting for wins? I'm rooting for the young players. I want the young players to compete. I don't care so much about the wins. I would like them to win. Like, I'm not actively rooting for a tank, but I don't think we're going to win many games trotting Tim Boyle out there right now. I predicted us to have the number 7 pick when all is said and done. I'm interested to see where that ends up falling. I think if Rodgers comes back and you wind up winning 2 of the next 3 at the end of the season, you're probably sitting somewhere closer to like the 15 pick. Or maybe between 12 and 15, somewhere in there. And then what do? You got Rodgers coming off an Achilles, but at least you would have gotten to see him. Like, at least if you see Rodgers perform well, maybe you feel all right saying, we're going to get 2 more years from Rodgers. He's not going to get re-injured. Maybe you pass on the quarterback this year. I'm of the opinion that I do think if you see a quarterback that you covet, you take him. But my concern is this coaching staff, this GM is not going to be here, and now you're saddling a young kid with his second offensive regime, second head coach, or are you trying to get a head coach to match the player and you're not selecting the best candidate? I think there's a little level of concern with that for me. But that's the type of thinking that winds up having you pass on Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson in favor of Jamal Adams. So you got to be careful with that. I completely understand why people think we should go quarterback right now. I am of the belief that I would not go a premium asset, or at least you need to make a decision. If you're making a decision, hey, we're going all in on Aaron Rodgers for 1 more season, you don't go quarterback in the first round. I think you go offensive line. I would go offensive line again in the 3rd round. Short of someone, you really like a quarterback falling. But I would load up on offensive line. I would go free agency offensive line. And you just build a friggin' fortress. Or do you hit the nuclear option? Do you say, all right, we're blowing it up. Everyone's gone. And maybe you bring in a new head coach. And you get like a Brian Johnson or a Ben Johnson. And you pair him with one of these young quarterbacks. And you say, Rodgers, you're going to play for another season. You got $50 million on the table or whatever it is. $35 million, $40 million on the table. You're coming back. Let's try to win it all. This kid's going to sit behind you. I don't know. I don't get the feeling that's the route they're going to go. I think they're going to give Saleh and Douglas another chance. I think they're going to give Rodgers another chance. I think they're going to invest their premium assets in things to help this team with Rodgers now. I don't think you're going to see another Will McDonald type pick for the future. Now, you could see like offensive lineman, which is for the now and for the future. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. Connor Long in here saying, pay Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff is such an interesting player to talk about because he is homegrown, undrafted free agent, stud at a premier position. Bryce Huff is a stud at the edge rush position. He is elite at that particular skill. He doesn't get a ton of snap percentage, and that's where you get into trouble with how much you want to pay him. Not to mention you've invested 2 first-round picks into the position and some heavy money into the defensive line already. So now Douglas is faced with a decision. If he's going into a hot seat year, do you roll with Bryce Huff knowing he's the best player that could help you win a championship right now? Or are you saying, I'm going to hedge my bets? Not hedge my bets, but I'm going to look at the rest of my defensive line that I've built. Look at the productivity of McDonald in recent weeks. Look at Jermaine Johnson. And you say, you know what, maybe I've got enough. And Douglas decides to move Huff for maybe it's a late first, maybe it's an early second. And then maybe you can take a quarterback there. That's the part that I think's interesting. That would be interesting for me. If you can get the offensive lineman or even trade down. I think if you're out of position for either Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt, I think you take one of those two. If they're gone, I would trade down. I would like to move down. I think there's more value in that. There's more offensive tackles a little bit further down the board, at least from what it seems like right now. I think these rankings will change greatly in the coming weeks. But I'm of the opinion you help the offensive line because that'll help a young quarterback in the future, whether you take him this year or not. Or do you extend Bryce Huff and you make him, will he take a John Franklin Myers type deal, like a $15 million a year deal? I would do that. I'd sign up for that right now. I think what's more likely to happen is they're going to franchise tag Bryce Huff. And they're going to use him for this season for a Super Bowl push. And then next year, they'll franchise tag him again, but they'll trade him. And they'll get another pick next year, and that'll be a chip that they can use to attract a new head coach if they have to, or maybe Douglas says, I'm going to use this chip right now to get my new quarterback. I think that's the way you use Bryce Huff right now. I don't think you should be trading away good pieces just to get young pieces for a regime that may not be here beyond this year. Just my thoughts. Cuddy comes in. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. He says, we don't have a second round pick. Trade back into the late first and get the second plus then go O-line quarterback with the first 3. I like the trade down scenario a lot. I'm a big fan of the trade down scenario. I think the Jets are going to wind up with a top 10 pick. And I think someone's going to want to come up and get a quarterback. Now, it's going to be interesting to see who winds up in that top 10 right now. Like, who are we just in front of that someone needs to leapfrog to go get? And are you okay passing on one of the top 2 offensive linemen to get a few more picks and take a lesser offensive lineman? That might be a better move. Get to add a little bit more talent across the board. Plus, maybe take your quarterback. If I could have one quarterback from this draft, Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix are the two that I've looked at a little bit more closely. Jets aren't going to be in position for May or Williams. They're going to go top 3. But if you were looking at one of those two and you could trade down and get one of them in conjunction with an offensive lineman, like maybe tackle in the second round is the way to go. If you trade down and you get the quarterback. I feel like it's weird to trade down and get a quarterback because you don't want to play that kind of game, but maybe your target is a different player and then a quarterback becomes your best player. It's going to be interesting to see what Woody allows Douglas to do and how he's going to use his assets. Like, is he going to be allowed to trade a future one for Devontae Adams? Is he going to be allowed to trade, future draft capital for draft capital this year to help us? How much leash does Joe Douglas have? I think is going to be an important question that we have to learn. Cuca Lake says offensive line or wide receiver round 1 and 3 and 4 and get Jonah Williams at right tackle, Warren and Mitchell as depth. I completely agree with Jonah Williams at right tackle. I would love to make him, a long-term offer, 5 years. And then wide receiver, I do think you should get one in this draft. There's a lot of really good wide receivers in this draft. So if you wanted to, now that Zach Zinter's hurt, if you can get him in the 4th round and take a receiver in the 3rd round, I would go something like, either Alt or Fashanu. I really like Matt's draft. I like Matt's draft a lot today. Now, I hope it's not necessarily Ewers as the quarterback that falls to us. But I think quarterback's interesting in the 3rd. But I think you could go wide receiver and get a really good one. There's supposed to be like 20 wide receivers that go before day 3, which would be rounds 1, 2, and 3. So if you can get a good wide receiver in conjunction with adding a wide receiver for agency, I'm talking about like stockpiling this offense. You're getting an offensive lineman in the 1st round. You're getting a wide receiver in the 3rd round. And then you add Zach Zinter, guard from Michigan, in the 4th round. Now that he's got a broken, tibia and fibula? I think that's what his injury was. He'll be back for training camp. Add them all. That's what I want to see. But I like Cuca Lake's take here. Nick Dow says, Ryan, what do you think Becton's potential contract looks like next year? I don't know. I don't know if I would extend him a contract. I think you maybe say, hey, why don't you go out and test the market? Let us know what you can get. Give us an opportunity to match it maybe. I don't want to pay him a whole lot. I don't know how he hasn't really been playing like super crazy good. And I get the feeling of him like going the money sign and slapping his knee. He feels like he wants to get paid. So I feel like this seems like there's going to be a little bit of a divorce here when it comes to Mekhi Becton. I think the feeling is going to be mutual. That's not to say I wouldn't want him back, but I get the feeling he's not going to come back. I think he's going to get does he get a 1-year deal? Like, hey, we'll give you 1 year, $14 million or something like that, or $15 million. Prove it deal. I don't think he's worth the franchise tag, whatever number that is. Lame Cactus says, Ewers is staying at Texas, silly goose. Nice. That'll be interesting. That's one more quarterback off the board then, because if Sanders is staying at school and Ewers stays at school, now you're talking like 6 quarterbacks at the top of this draft. Kyle Cos says it's November 27th. We're talking draft picks. That alone should get someone fired. LOL. Dude, it sucks talking about draft picks right now, but at least we have something to look forward to. Right? I want to not like harp on the doom and gloom side of things and at least start doing a little bit of recon. A little bit of reconnaissance. I want to watch a few college games and like zero in on specific players. On specific teams. That's what I want to do. It sucks that we can't be rooting for wins right now. I mean, we could still root for wins. Oh, Blitzcrew, I totally missed your super chat. I am so sorry, dude. I went right past it. Blitzcrew comes in. Says, did a Pro Football Focus draft sim earlier. Harrison Jr. slid to us in one. Fashanu rarely available. Alt more often. Someone will move up to get us up with us to get Bowers. So I would love to see that. I don't mind not getting Fashanu. I would take Joe Alt, 100%. Either one of those two. I'm happy with either one. If both are gone, I'm probably feeling more of a trade down. Harrison Jr. is like interesting because if you can get like an elite all-time player, you just do it. It doesn't really matter the position so much, but I feel like offensive line is so important. So you're going to have to start relying on, free agency and mid-round draft picks if you think you're going to solve the offensive line if you take a wide receiver that early. That feels like a pick I hope we don't have to come to. Like, I hope Harrison Jr. goes in the top 3 or 4 picks, so that way another talent at a position of need for us, like a tackle or even a quarterback to trade out, falls to us. That's what I would prefer. And as far as Bowers, if someone will trade up in front of us to get Bowers or with us to get him, I'm all about that. I wouldn't take a tight end in the first round. Cuddy comes in. Cuddy says, do you think Rodgers has draft say? I don't think so, but I think there was probably an understanding like, hey, if I'm coming over to New York and we're going to do this, I want to be all in for these next 2 years, and we're going to leave a third year on the table. That's what I think. I think Rodgers would understand if there was a trade down and they a guy fell to him or something like that. I think there's something to be said for still planning for the future, but I think they're going to surround Rodgers with as much talent as possible with all their assets. I don't think quarterback's in the cards this year, unless we decide to trade Huff. If we decide to trade Huff for a quarterback, I'll be a little surprised because that's a move like against Rodgers. Unless they deem the franchise tag salary of Huff is too high for the salary we currently have on our team and our defensive line. Like if you say you can't have Huff because we'd rather pay, maybe a Mike Evans or something like that with the salary that you'd pay for Huff. Huff's going to be a $17.3 million on the franchise tag. Or do you trade him and get a draft pick? Would you move him for Davante Adams? Is that something that seems attractive? I don't particularly want Davante Adams, if I'm being honest. His contract's not terrible, but I think T. Higgins and Evans are just better receivers and are different style receivers that I think would benefit our team in terms of having like a Garrett Wilson clone. And that's not to say that Garrett Wilson, having 2 of them, would be a bad thing, because that's not what I'm trying to say. But we have a lot of red zone issues, and a big red zone body seems to be the right move for me. Edward Ziff hops in with Super Chat. Edward says, if Zach agrees to a minimum salary, do you keep him as a redshirt third string training project? So he can't really, because his contract's fully guaranteed. So he's going to hit us for, I think, $10 or $11 million as far as a cap hit goes, whether he's on the roster or not. If the Jets decide to cut him, I could understand, but I would love to see some type of resurgence from the Hackett offense and Rodgers to maybe start playing a little bit better or something. Give them some type of excuse to let Zach stay as the third string. I don't think there's much harm. You just plan on if he has to go in as a third string, the season's probably over at that point. You got to have a good backup quarterback. I don't know. I don't mind holding on to Zach, given his salary, cap hit anyway. You have to decide, is he worth the roster spot? That's what it is. Because you can't put him on the practice squad. You would have to look at him and say, okay, it's worth not having him either in the locker room, it's better for a clean break, or he's just not worth the roster spot, and player number 54 or whatever that would have made the roster instead of him is better on the roster. That's where I have a hard time. If you're talking a practice squad guy, I think the upside in what even a long shot Zach Wilson could do appears to at least be better. I don't know. That's not really me holding on to hope for Zach at all, because I'm advocating for drafting a quarterback. If you draft a quarterback, you're not keeping Zach. And what I kind of think is, if you're going to keep this regime together for another year, I don't necessarily see the harm in keeping Zach behind Rodgers and behind another backup quarterback like a Brissett or a Minshew or whatever quarterback is sitting behind Rodgers, and then just cleaning house after next year. So I think Zach could come back, but I don't think you're going to have to restructure his contract. I think he's already locked in for what he is. Cuddy says Huff is more valuable than any wide receiver if we have Garrett Wilson. Huff is more valuable than any wide receiver if we have Garrett Wilson. Yeah, so if you have Garrett Wilson, you don't need to add someone super crazy elite. Like, I think the complement of a T. Higgins or a Mike Evans creates a greater value overall than the trading of an asset for Devontae Adams. That's where I fall on Devontae. Like, in a vacuum, like if he was a free agent, then sure, bring in Devontae, but you got to trade an asset. And what are the Raiders going to give him up for? Conditional second, maybe? I understand if you want to give up your third this year instead of drafting a wide receiver, like if you would have drafted a wide receiver in the third round, just say, hey, screw it. We'll go with the wide receiver that we know has chemistry with our quarterback, and that'll be our default selection. Maybe they're going to do that. I don't know. Knobcraft comes in, says, if Douglas pulls out another free agency scoop like Khalil or Brown or Tomlinson or Lazard or Cook or Cobb or Turnstile, he's got to go immediately. Strolling through the Dollar Tree ain't it. So let's look at all those specifically, because I do think it's important to remember the context of each of those decisions, because it's a little bit of revisionist history. And I think you do have to hold Joe Douglas accountable for not bringing a backup quarterback, the drafting of Zach Wilson, and like a lot of other stuff. Like, I understand that, but let's go through these. Khalil, he came in after free agency and after the draft. They talked a Pro Bowl caliber center out of retirement to come play when there was no other options. I'm fine with that one. Dwayne Brown was signed after Mekhi Becton went down with an injury, and we were in a panic mode. We had him in the building because we knew we needed some depth behind Becton, but we were in a panic move to get him. Tomlinson, I think, was the right move. Pro Bowler coming off a Pro Bowl season with the same offense that you're running under Mike LaFleur. It just seemed like the easy plug-and-play answer. I 100% support it. He played like dog shit last year. I think he's playing better this year, but I definitely 100% support the move last year. Lazard, when I look at Lazard, Cook, Cobb, and Billy Turner, I look at their salaries and I look at the discount that Rodgers gave us and I say it's just a wash. This was the cost of getting Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think any of them have been good. I think Lazard, Cobb, Cook, and Billy Turner have all been detrimental signings to the New York Jets. I think they have caused more issues than have solved, and they have caused players to either not see reps on the field, like an Izzy with Dalvin Cook, or more targets going towards Lazard instead of going towards either a Garrett or a Brees or a Conklin or the next wide receiver you want to insert down the line. But overall, I do think some of these decisions are not as bad as the actual end result wound up being, given the context surrounding them. Jace comes in with a super chat. Jace says, we need to make sure Garrett is our number one. I'd love Higgins or Evans instead. Can't believe we are already talking offseason, but O-line is top priority. O-line needs to be top priority. There's going to be a few decent offensive linemen hitting free agency. Trent Brown is going to be a popular name. I think Jonah Williams from Cincinnati, although they have a lot of money in salary cap space, I think it's going to suck trying to pry him away from there, unless there's any sort of resistance because he didn't get his fifth-year option exercise. Maybe there's a little saltiness there. I'd like to see that come to fruition, make him our right tackle, and then draft a guy early. That solves your offensive line for me. I do like Higgins and Evans as complement receivers to Garrett. 100%. Boogie down, Bronx. Thank you so much for the super chat. Says, I know you're not crazy about this, but if Rodgers wants to play, then he should play. He owes it to the Jets fans. We did a lot to get him, and he wanted his friends here. We got them all here. They're unproductive. He has tied our hands. So I said it before, there are pros and cons to having Rodgers play. I think there is a lot of value to see what this offense looks like with Nathaniel Hackett at the helm with Rodgers as the quarterback. Rodgers had his plays called by LaFleur over in Green Bay, not Hackett. Even if Rodgers was able to change his plays at the line of scrimmage, I think that does have some level of impact. I think that you got to see what, Rodgers' leg looks like. If Rodgers looks healthy this year, you can have a lot more confidence going into next year, and you could probably attract more free agents. I think if you see certain players play well with Rodgers under center, I think maybe it alleviates some of your concern. Now, I don't know what example that might be. Like maybe tight end feels a lot better with Conklin and Ruckert really going off or something. Or, maybe Gibson starts playing well in the slot. It'd be great if Rodgers comes in and Lazard starts getting his head out of his ass. That'd be great. Make you feel a little bit better about the investment you made in him in the free agent market. That sucks. What was it, $20 million guaranteed? You're tied to him. And Salah's saying, yo, like, Lazard's here for the next year and a half. Like, you look at the guaranteed money. I guess that's a realistic, like, thought. But, like, dog, that's brutal. And then what do we think of Salah talking about Breece Hall? Not getting the tough yards. How are we feeling about that? I do feel like we have Rodgers. Rodgers has tied our hands. And I think there's some guilt from him on that part. And I don't think it's necessarily justified. I don't think it's his fault his Achilles snapped, but I think there's a ton of, Jet fans out there, players out there, coaches out there that were relying on him to be here and to have just an average season and to lead us from the darkness and to get us into the playoffs and to, get these guys paydays and all this other stuff. Like, there's a lot that went into Rodgers this year. The primetime games, the money lost. I could see him wanting to come back because of that. Not to mention him wanting to come back December 24th. Like, make no mistake, they're trying to sell tickets to that game. That's going to be a tougher game to sell out, being Christmas Eve. And at least if you could say, hey, I'm going to see Rodgers on the field Christmas Eve, maybe that makes it a little more, desirable. Now, it's not guaranteed. Maybe he's not actually active for that game. And you buy a ticket and you're, screwed. I don't know. I'm on the fence. If he wants to play, you play him, but I don't know. I'm nervous. Blitzcrew says Zach will never get a fair shake in New York. Let him move on. I don't think he has a head for this game. Need minimum of one free agent wide receiver and one free agent offensive lineman. I completely agree, Blitzcrew. I think you have to get one good offensive lineman and one good wide receiver in free agency. You bring in a Jonah Williams, a Trent Brown, to some degree, a Mekhi Becton or a Bakhtiari in conjunction with someone else. You got to bring in some offensive line help. And Douglas usually goes for the best one. He went after Tooney. He went after Jack Conklin. He went after Orlando Brown last offseason. I would expect him to go after Jonah Williams first. He'll offer him the top contract, and hopefully because we have Aaron Rodgers, that's enough to entice him to come here. But he's got Joe Burrow on his team right now, and Burrow's got, the Cincinnati Bengals have a lot of money they could spend. So there's some concern there. Free agent wide receiver. Do the Bucs try to retain Mike Evans? I don't know. Seems like he wants a monster contract. Him or T. Higgins feels like the best fit for this Jets team from a different style wide receiver perspective, even though it seems like a foregone conclusion that Devontae Adams is going to be a receiver on the New York Jets next year. But I agree. I think you got to go one of each of those positions. And as far as Zach not getting a fair shake in New York, I think that's probably true. I think he's going to have to get traded or cut or whatever, and he can go somewhere else. I don't think he's going to be on the team next year. Stifler's mom comes in and says, O-line has been the problem since Hard Knocks. 100% agree. Hard agree. We knew that was going to be a struggling position to go into this season with the two tackles we had. You had Brown, you had Becton, you had the fallback plan of AVT. You drafted Carter Warren, you bring in a Billy Turner, and you hope that, batch of Band-Aids and rubber bands is enough to get you through. And it wasn't. I think you needed to get through this season to get the offensive line for the offseason, for free agency, the draft, whatever. I think you needed, this was the year you wanted to see things go well, but you're like, okay, we still need a few more pieces. But 2024, that's the Super Bowl or bust year. O-line's been a big issue. Big issue. Guys, we're going to start call-ins in just a second. I'm just going to get to Knobcraft Super Chat real quick. And you know what? As I have that on the screen, let me just get my link ready. So that way you guys can join the show. All right. So that is going to go there. We're going to end this poll. 60% of you say no one should get fired from this regime, and we should roll with the same cast of characters next year. I tend to agree. Knobcraft comes in and says Douglas is constantly in a position where he's taking flyers on guys with red flags after the fact. It's a scary proposition to let him keep building his castle of excuses. So I understand this, and I'm fine if that's the justification for you saying you got to move on from Joe Douglas. I know where we came from, and I look at how Joe Douglas analyzes talent, and I see he understands talent. I don't blame him so much for the injuries. I think it's bad luck. I think there were some red flags with Becton. I think he could have gone worse. I think there's decisions you can absolutely criticize for Douglas. I think he is the reason we got Rodgers here, though. And I think that's important to remember. His draft classes have not looked very good. His overall win record is not very good. Do you hit the reset button with a new GM, a new offensive-minded coach? You hope Rodgers comes back. Maybe you take your offensive lineman. Maybe you take your quarterback of the future. Look, I think Douglas and Saleh are both here to stay, Knobcraft. I think we're going to see them back next year. They're going to get one more shot with Rodgers, and then everyone's gone. Everyone's gone if it doesn't work out. All right. Boys and girls, I'm going to put the call-in number. All you have to do is scan the QR code. It's also pinned in the live chat if you'd like to join in. Let's see. Let me see. All right. Our first caller, we're going to get Lima on the phone. Lima Bean, how you doing tonight?
I guess okay. It's no football for, us to watch. So, I mean, that's the Jets. But, basically, first thing, we got to stop talking about trading Bryce Huff, man. Like, let's make him stay. Like, I'm tired of trading away good players. It took us forever to get good players, like, for years we've been running out like crap. So let's just try to keep him. Let's speak that into existence of us signing him to a nice medium-sized contract instead of trading him. And then, like, yeah, and let's get rid of, like, the excess fat off the team. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where we get our money from. But in terms of getting a quarterback, here's what I think. Like, we had our one chance to, like, really tank and get Trevor Lawrence. It didn't work out. That's that. I think we got to do it a different way now because we have too good of a team with talent overall, minus the injuries. Let's build a full team, and then when we do draft a quarterback, he has everything that he needs. So let's build a team around Aaron Rodgers, and then go from there. Like, and especially make a commitment to the offense, O-line, wide receivers, and depth at those positions instead of just sprinkling. Oh, draft maybe one O-line here or one wide receiver in the 6th round. Like, no, like let's go hardcore. Like, we overdo defense way too much in the league that penalizes defense, like, and I love our defense, don't get me wrong, but it's just we got to go the other way for once. We have good defensive players. Let's keep cultivating and nurturing them, and let's get some offense and let's get some depth, like, in there in the draft and free agency. Tons of O linemen, tons of wide receivers, and, like, let's build so that whoever we do draft for the future, they're not screwed.
I completely agree. Stock the cupboard. Stock the cupboard. Go O-line. Yeah. O'Leary and I, it's funny, we were talking because he hadn't seen my mock draft when we had talked prior to talking Jets, and I saw his mock draft earlier today. We both have us taking an offensive tackle in the 1st round. He had Alt. I had Fashanu. I'm good either way with either one of those guys. I love Zach Zinter. Now that he's hurt and you can get him probably a year, like a round later, love that. I think getting the guard out of Michigan and then bringing in a free agent offensive tackle. I think that's the overkill you need on the offensive line. And for wide receiver, now that with Zinter getting hurt, I feel like wide receiver is a realistic option in the 3rd round. And I would love to bring Huff back, to your first point. I think Huff needs to be here for a Super Bowl run if you're going all in on this team. I think it's just more likely he plays in a franchise tag. Because if you were him, why would you settle for less without testing the open market?
Yeah, well, whatever it is, let's franchise tag him and then maybe negotiate things on while he's on the tag. But just let's try to keeping him while we still have these, like, rookie contracts for these guys, and then overkill on the offense. And then, like I said, maybe in the 2025 draft we draft a QB, whether it be 1st or 2nd round. But like the way the Kansas City Chiefs did it, or even like the Philadelphia Eagles or the Bills, like, they didn't have any quarterbacks drafted in the top 3 or whatever. Like, I'm tired of tanking for a QB. Most of them don't work out unless they're generational.
You are gone. Where's my chicken? There's my chicken. I got too many people on the line. Chicken's like, I'm done. I can't go across the screen. Boogie Down Bronx comes in. Thank you so much for the super chat. It says, Rodgers can end the season on a positive note. At least there will be hope for next season instead of not knowing what we have in Rodgers next season. Also, depending on how he plays will dictate what round we draft a quarterback. I love this aspect of Rodgers playing. It scares the ever-living life out of me. But if he plays like dog shit, it makes you feel all that more comfortable in just canning everyone saying, hey, Rodgers, you coming back this year or not? If he doesn't come back and the cap hit's going to hurt, you're going to have to take quarterback anyway. If he does come back, great. And you have a young quarterback sitting behind him. Like, there is some level of, comfort in knowing what you could have with Rodgers. Is he hampered right now and you're going to still have the question mark anyway? You're going to say, like, oh, well, he did return in record time. I don't know. It's interesting. I would love to see him come in and play well and still be given that hope in the offseason of saying, okay, I think he can be even better given more time and given more weapons and offensive linemen and wide receivers and whatnot. But do you risk next season? I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Green sign needs to stop because who would we bring in? The people are talking about this guy, Ben Johnson, that's not proven yet, right? Look,
and why would he choose the Jets
end of the
with
day,
like
man,
a potential lame duck quarter? Like, I don't think the Jets are an attractive landing spot if we fire people this year.
Exactly to my point. Because Aaron Rodgers comes back, there's a free agency coming up with the wide receiving core that's going to be coming. It's a lot. T. Higgins, Evans. There's just a lot of people that are out there, not including Devontae Adams that we might get as a trade. Now, if that happens, hey, I'll be hyped. But who do I want making that trade? Is JD, because JD is going to finesse that trade, right? And it's not going to go ahead and overpay like we've done in the past with prior GMs. My other thing, too, is we still got 6 games. Do I think that we could go on a 6-0 run? Hell no. But does the inner Jet fan in me say yes? Yes, at the same time. That's just that toxic relationship that we have as the Jet fan base. And if you guys are not, the fan base does not want to stick around for it. Y'all get it, man. We're tired. We're pissed off. We're exhausted of seeing the same old crap because we're watching the same stuff from last year. And I understand that, man. But we as a fan base have to do better, man. We can't just be fire this person, fire that person. It hasn't worked for us in the past. We need to continue having the same nucleus that we have now to keep building for the future. Because I want this team to be good for 10 years plus and be able to build through that. You can't have that if you're just getting A, B, C, and D and then firing everybody else just to get the next letter. So that's my take on that, man. It's JETS, just still. And I would love to have Marvin Harrison Jr. as the wide receiver for – dude, yeah, man. I think that guy's a general, right? Why not us and
How
all
do you
that? And then
feel
we could
about the
get rid of
offensive line? Evans, Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, studs all over the place.
It worked for the Bengals.
Fair, I guess.
You know what I mean?
It's fair
right?
argument.
So, hey, that's my take, man. JETS, just. Let's go.
Boom, Johnny. You have been ejected from the cockpit. All right, let's hop over to Daniel. Daniel comes in and says, hear me out. With the Bears landing the number 1 pick and they want Caleb, how does it sound wanting to go for Fields as backup? I love Fields. He's a playmaker and one of the few young quarterbacks that beat Bill. I don't think it happens if Joe Douglas is the GM. I don't think there's going to be a situation where he cuts Zach Wilson or trades Zach Wilson and then winds up trading for a quarterback he could have drafted instead of Zach Wilson. I don't think I see that happening. I like Justin Fields. I think he's interesting. I don't think he's the right type of quarterback for us because we'd still have to decide on his 5th-year option, which if you're trading for, I think you'd want to exercise. But unless you're getting like a decent deal, I don't want to exercise a Justin Fields 5th-year option. I would much prefer a low-end, I shouldn't say low-end, a high-end backup that's like a Geno Smith level career resurgence potential. Someone like a Jacoby Brissett, a Gardner Minshew. If you get Baker Mayfield as backup, I think that would be cool. There's a few guys that I think you could bring in to back up Rodgers. It's just a matter of if they want to be able to get starting jobs elsewhere or play here and potentially have an opportunity once Rodgers is done. I do not want Justin Fields, though. I would be out on Justin Fields. All right, let's head over to Daniel. Daniel, how are you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing good, Ryan. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. I'm trying to make heads or tails of what the rest of our season is going to look like and what we should do moving forward into the future.
Now, Ryan, would you take the receiver on the board in the draft? Because I think we're going to be a top 5 pick from the way the season looks.
I projected us to fall at number 7, but I could see top 5 as well. I don't see us winning many games if Boyle's the quarterback. If Rodgers is the quarterback, that changes a little bit. But I'm saying, if we're sitting at 5, it depends what happens in free agency. Like if you're able to get a Mike Evans or a T. Higgins in free agency, and you were not able to get like a Jonah Williams, I don't know how you could not take the tackle. Not to mention, like, with all the offensive line issues we had, I'm cool like double and tripling down on offensive line. Like I'm good with guard in the 4th round if Zinter's going to be there now. I'm good with tackle in the 1st round. I'm good with tackle in free agency. Like just load us up. I would rather go the free agency route for wide receiver, I think.
Okay, but say you're the GM, Ryan. I'm gonna make you the GM, okay? Even though I think you would be a better GM because I watched all your videos, Ryan. You
Thank
said
you.
take words, and he's a Pro Bowler.
That's
I
it.
mean, you
I
bring
was
me
happy with Becton, but like Werfs would have been the way to go.
Ryan. If we ran this team, man, do you know how good we would be?
I've had some I've had some clunkers. I've had some clunkers too. I can't say I've had all good things, but there's a few I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah, but most of you, Matt and Greenman, I love your guys' channel. I watch every Tuesday, by the way. Every Tuesday
I
I watch
appreciate that. Means a lot.
Like, made me more into a Jets fan. Like, you
That's the
guys
goal.
got me.
Diehards. Love it.
Ryan, it's hard, man. It's hard, Ryan.
So what would you do? Would you take the wide receiver in the draft then?
Yeah, I would, Ryan, because
Ooh.
you can get him for cheap, Ryan, and have him on a 5-year deal, and then Aaron Rodgers can turn him into another Garrett Wilson or even Monte.
Maybe they feel stronger if Rodgers looks decent behind this particular iteration of our offensive line and he starts distributing the ball and they're like, okay, hey, we can go out and get the weapon in the draft and in free agency and try to bring in a free agent offensive lineman and then maybe take the tackle in the 3rd round or the guard in the 3rd round. Maybe, not use a premium pick. I can completely understand that. I don't think you have to construct an offensive line entirely of 1st round picks. I just think you have a higher likelihood of hitting on those picks. And like, that's probably where I land on the offensive lineman. Not to mention I guess either pick helps a young quarterback beyond Rodgers if Rodgers isn't the guy anyway. Like, it's not like it's a bad pick for a win now selection, I guess.
So would you trade down, Ryan, if you're top 5, or will you just stick there and just take the receiver or O-line?
I would take the O-line depending on what the trade coming up is. If the trade's like, hey, we'll give you 2 first-round picks plus something additional, I'm probably taking the trade down and taking an offensive lineman a little later. Maybe even consider taking a quarterback at that point, or you like more of the wide receivers in the middle of the draft as opposed to the top 5. I don't think I like receiver in the top 5, but if you want to trade down and add more picks, I'm cool with that in a trade down. But
Right.
you have been, Daniel, ejected from the cockpit. Let's see. I saw Chuck in here. What's up, Chuck? Thank you for the $10 super chat. He says, it's all Aaron Rodgers coming in with his crew, number 1. Then number 2, Robert Saleh is not a coach. He is a locker room fan. He is more their friend than a coach. He is not a Lombardi, and that's what we need. Do we need the CEO-style head coach? A guy like Belichick, a guy like Parcells, a guy like Sean Payton that comes in and just runs the whole show? Or do we need a friendly coach? A guy that can come in and get players to want to play for him, who want to come here to the Jets? I think there is pros and cons to Saleh, and I have no problem if you decide to fire him because I think based on a lot of his decisions, I think you could justify that. I think he's been put in a very weird situation because of Joe Douglas or Woody Johnson, depending on where the quarterback lack of acquisition blame falls on. I think Saleh, for the most part, was playing the best quarterback. But I think when you lose the locker room, the way it appears he does, and the discipline you continue to see us lacking week in and week out, I don't know how you don't say it's coaching. So I agree with you, Chuck. I agree with you. And Rodgers and his goons, I shouldn't say goons, but Rodgers and his guys, his posse, guys that came in because of him, there's going to be a lot of talk this offseason on what to do. Because it certainly hurts seeing what we've gotten out of him so far. Boogie Down Bronx comes in and says, I'm only trading Huff if I get a first round pick. He's going to get first round money, or close to it. So we should get a first for him if he stays, if he does not stay. So I would trade Huff for a first. If you're only getting offered a second round pick, I understand considering it based on who's on the board at the time of the selection of that pick. But Bryce Huff is someone that I think can win with us next year with Rodgers when you're going all in, and I don't think you should take a half measure on it. I think $17.3 million is fine unless you're going to allocate that money towards another area of need on the team, or think you can maybe, if the trading of him can increase the value of the team overall. I don't know if a rookie's going to be able to do that unless you're saying, hey, trading Huff for a player instead of a pick. Maybe that's the route you decide to go, because it's a developed player in the NFL, but I would not like trading Huff. I'm not particularly into trading Huff this year. I would tag him and hold on to him. Let's move over to Edward. Edward, how are you doing tonight, brother?
How you doing, Ryan? It's been a while.
It's been a while. I'm hanging in there. I don't know how to feel about my Jets right now, or our Jets. What do you think the rest of the season is going to hold for us?
Well, here's my feelings on Rodgers playing.
Mm-hmm.
I think he needs to play at least 2 games with positive results, because I think there are some younger players on the team right now who are starting to question, is this team going to be worth playing for the next 2-3 years? And I think if Rodgers gives them a taste of victory and shows them things that can come, they're more likely to stay rather than testing the free agent market.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that. I think there's definitely some rumblings from Brees, from Garrett, and guys I think
and
the
you
only
don't
reason
want
they're not
Sauce
losing
getting
their
all
mind.
pissed off.
The only reason they're
Sauce
not losing their mind is because Rodgers is in the hopper.
Yeah. But as far as some players that should either stay or go, I would like to see them keep Huff. And if there's someone that needs to get the axe, even though he's a good player, I'd say JFM, because he makes a lot of money. His guaranteed money is pretty much used up, and he's an older player now. And we have the horses to replace him.
Older kind of, because you have Huff and McDonald and Johnson, but he's not crazy old. But I could understand you want to move
I
off
know,
of him to
but
keep
I'd rather he go than Huff.
I can understand that. So
does that make sense?
Sure. No, I definitely agree with that. Now, do you think it's going to be the franchise? I would imagine Huff would want us, or will make us, franchise tag him, because we're not going to let him test free agency. I don't think, because if we let him test free agency, I don't think he comes back. So I don't think we're going to sign him to a longer term deal. His franchise tag would be about 17.3.
Yeah, if he wanted to sign, he would have signed when he had the chance to sign.
Mm-hmm. Now, Douglas did say they were starting to have preliminary talks. I believe that it was around the bye week. They were going to start having some preliminary conversations, nothing overly formal. But it would be nice before the end of the season if you heard hey, there's a commitment from Bryce Huff moving forward.
And that whole super chat about Zach, that was under the premise that Zach agreed to a league minimum salary, just so that because he's already made his money, and we could tell Zach, hey, you could stay. He could stay and learn under Rodgers, or he could go to the XFL.
Yeah,
choice is yours.
I get that. I think if you're not gonna accept his 5th-year option, but I think if you hold him on the team, then you I don't know. I just don't think. I don't think he would have to restructure based on what his contract currently is, because if he gets canned, he's still getting the same amount of money. So I
think I'm going to get the chicken.
You're getting the chicken.
I think I'm going to get the chicken.
Get out of here, Edward.
See ya.
You're gone. Boom. Ejected from the cockpit. E-Rock comes in and says, what's better for this team, tank or win now? So I think you do need to learn how to win. And I'm not overly concerned, because I think there's a few options for the Jets in this draft. I want to go offensive line, so I do want to have a top pick. If you can get Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu, those guys seem to be the 2 offensive tackles talked about inside the top 10. If you can land one of them, that'd be great. But a draft pick is just a raffle ticket anyway. So I want to see some success. I want to have some hope going into the offseason. I want to see Rodgers look good, and me have the optimism of saying, well, I hope he gets even better from here on out. So as far as tank or win, I want to see optimism from our team more than I want to see us tanking. Now, as far as last game of the season, maybe I feel a little differently depending on the circumstances of said game. Well, let's head over to Eli. Eli, how you doing, brother?
I am upset. I think both Joe Douglas and Salah are frauds, and I think they should both get fired. I think they destroyed our team.
Okay, so what are you doing with Rodgers? Is he coming back? Are we taking the dead cap hit next year? What happens?
If he wants to come back with a different coach, then he can. I'm not bending over to him anymore. We bent over for Rodgers, and he screwed us. We took all his players that he wanted that all stink, and he destroyed our team. Hackett is a terrible hire. That's all him. Lazard, terrible, right? Because we didn't address the receiver position because we got all his buddies in. Lazard, Cobb, both are two of some of the worst.
I think they did
receivers.
try to get Odell, though. I do think they tried to go after him, and he got offered like double the money I think a lot of us thought he would get here.
Odell is a Rodgers guy too, because why are we going after Odell? I mean,
but I think they were trying to add more wide receivers, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think they were necessarily set on where they were.
I mean, I guess, but I think that's Rodgers. I mean, we could have JSN. I think that would have been a much better pick. And okay, for a tackle, we got Billy Turner, who stinks because Chris Rodgers, like everything, like, and then he it's not his fault that he got injured. But when you set it, when you destroy our offense, like on paper, we're worse than we are last year offensively. Sure. Except for the quarterback, we are worse. So if you're gonna like destroy our team, like it just. I feel like
Hackett's the biggest one to blame for me. Like when I'm looking at this, I see LaFleur having success with similar guys on this team. Granted, it's less Elijah Moore, it's less Corey Davis, and then more Lazard and more like Gibson. So it's a different regime or a different like quality of wide receiver, I feel like. But I feel like Hackett's the bigger problem than some of the players that came with Rodgers. But we're stuck with Hackett either way.
I think it's also Salah, because Salah can't run it all. I mean, what is Salah? All the good coaches that call plays and all that, Salah is like a cheerleader, you know? I mean, we blame the offensive coordinator, but ultimately Salah is responsible for the offense, correct? I mean, we say it's Salah's defense, but if Salah gets all the credit for the defense, why isn't he getting any of the credit for the offense, right? Because if it's Hackett's offense, then it's Ulbrich's defense, right? I mean, where are we going
why Simeon isn't starting. Like, I feel like you should be starting Simeon instead of Boyle, and I feel like they're trying to protect Hackett. That's what I feel like. I think they're trying to trot Boyle out there for 2 games, trot Simeon out there for 2 games, and then Rodgers comes back, and they're like, oh, never mind. It's clearly not Hackett. It's just the level of quarterback play we had. I think that's what they're trying to do.
They're stubborn with their system. And I think what they're going to do is, because they're not going to get fired and they're going to continue to screw our team for the next few years, because they're going to trade it for Devontae, which I think is so stupid. To trade a first-round pick for a 31-year-old receiver who is on a massive contract is the dumbest decision possible. And I really do not want to see it. And they're going to keep on doing the win-now moves. They're not going to take a quarterback. I do not love the quarterback class, I will say that. But they're not going to take a quarterback. They're going to wait till like the 4th round. They're going to draft like some old lineman. And they're just going to keep like – it's going to be another year of mediocrity, and I hate this team.
If you don't like the quarterback class, and do you want them to take the quarterback? Look, I agree. I don't want to trade for Devontae Adams, but if you don't like the quarterback class, why would you want them to take a quarterback?
I don't know. I don't know. They need to do something.
What the hell, Eli? You are getting ejected from the cockpit. You're nuts. He's Looney Tunes. All right, let's go over to Charles. Then we got Tigo on the line. Then I got Carson, Connor, and Joe in the hole. Charles, how you doing, brother?
Good. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was solid. I had some really good food. I had a Thanksgiving pizza. Holy smokes. Do I have my phone near me? You guys got to check out this pizza. This was a wild pizza. It's more of like a robust shepherd's pie type thing, but like no joke. Let's see if I can show you.
That's impressive, man.
Mashed potatoes, turkey, cheese, corn, carrots, peas, like massive. But I had one of those, and I had, obviously the standard Thanksgiving stuff. It was awesome. How was your Thanksgiving, Charles?
It was great. We had turkey, my mom's famous stuffing, which consists of rice, pork, celery, and onions. We had candy yams with some marshmallows or candy sweet potatoes, whatever the hell you want to call them. Artichoke, corn. Anyways, I'm very disappointed with the Jets, but I am somewhat a bit optimistic for next season. I know a lot of Jet fans are very mixed on Joe Douglas. I think he has a good eye for talent, But the thing is, he needs to be more consistent with his drafts. He needs to
Mhm.
be better with his free agencies. I think the biggest number one priority for next season is to build up on the offensive line. Because the offensive line is horrible. I mean, we've given up nearly 50 sacks this year, which is atrocious. We need to open up holes in the running game. You see, and I've been saying this for years. We haven't had a good offensive line since 2015. That was the last time we had a good offensive line. They were healthy for the most part. And another thing that really pisses me off about this coaching staff is that they're not really coaching. They're just relying on their system. And I know a lot of us shat on Sean Payton when he made those comments about Hackett, but he's a good coach. Look what he's done with Denver. Denver's now what, 6-5?
Well,
They've won like
I don't know if development's necessarily the issue so much as it is potentially play calling and the level of players that we just have. Like, do you see any of our
I'm not
players
seeing
leaving this
that
team?
either. I'm sorry. I understand that too. Like, I think there's a multitude of issues surrounding the Jets. I think we need to get new turf because our turf we have sucks.
I
People
just
are
got
getting
bad
hurt.
juju on the turf. That's what it is. I can't tell you if it's really causing all these injuries, if Rodgers would have been hurt one way or another, but it just feels like we got to change the turf, right?
And
That's what it feels like.
part of me does want Rodgers to play. Part of me does, because what if he gets hurt again? Like, that's the deal, yo. Like if he sucks, that's one thing. If he plays like crap, it's one thing. But if the guy gets hurt really freaking badly, then what the hell? So
But is it worth knowing what he is before making important decisions this offseason, or is
I think we definitely need to
trusting
know
what
who the
he
hell this guy is,
is?
because the guy's going to turn 40 next month.
But so you trust what he's going to be at 40 after an Achilles injury versus seeing what he could be, even though there's the risk of getting him hurt. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. It's fascinating either way. Charles,
Yeah.
you've been
You're
ejected
out of here!
from the cockpit. We've got Tigo joining the show. Tigo, how you doing, brother?
Doing good. How are you, man?
Hanging in there. Hanging in there. How was your Thanksgiving?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Just hanging out,
Makes me
How
feel
you
good.
doing?
Hanging in there. This Jet team, what are we doing in the offseason, dude?
Trading up for Marvin Harrison Jr.
You serious? You want to
That's
trade up
all
for
I'm gonna.
You want to trade up for a wide
Yeah.
receiver?
First of all, put some respect on Marvin Harrison Jr.'s name. We're not trading up for a wide receiver. We're trading up for the best wide receiver in the NFL who happens to be playing at Ohio State right now. Okay?
So
Put some respect on the kid.
that's
'cause
fair.
He
So
is
what-
the only player that I've ever evaluated that I've legitimately given a generational tag to. We should do everything in our power to go and get Marvin Harrison Jr. And we're going to be within striking distance to do it. So
What would you be willing
think
to
you've
give
gotta
up
go
to
get a
make that
center.
happen?
whatever. I don't think it's going to be anything all that crazy in terms of like picks, because I think ultimately we end up anywhere from like 4 to I think we end up like 4 to 7. So the real question is who's at 3 and can you convince them to come out? My fear is that New England is at 3 and then that probably won't end up happening. But
So let's take a look at what we've got. You've got right now the Bears are sitting at 1. They're probably taking a quarterback. Arizona at 2. Are they taking a quarterback? Like, are they keeping Kyler?
pick's for
Or are they
sale.
going to? You think it's for sale,
that pick's for
Right.
sale.
especially in front of New England, right?
Exactly.
So would that be where you have to get up to?
No, because here's the thing. If you're at 4 and the teams in front of you are Chicago, Arizona, and New England, you're totally safe. You stay at
But
4
you
and
get
take
you
Marvin
get you get
Harrison
that
Jr.
extra number. You have to let that other Chicago fall behind you. Then.
Yes.
Could-
Yeah, Chicago has to Chicago needs to start winning games. Like we got to start rooting for Chicago to win games because you need them to get behind you so that you can get Marvin Harrison Jr. Like it's
I
either
think
you
the
get Marvin
Giants
Harrison
could
Jr.
take
in the
him
top
too, though.
10.
I
The
could
Giants
totally
need to
see
go
the
O-line.
Giants taking him.
Absolutely.
I could
That's
see
the thing. You
O-line.
got to get ahead of the Giants, the Bears. You got to get ahead of those guys. If not, you got to trade up for it.
I think Tampa probably could go O-line. I don't know how Washington's O-line is. I'd have to take a look at them.
They're going to take O-line for sure.
So you,
O-line or
I
edge.
mean, I think we need to be within the top 7. So that way, there's 2 quarterbacks.
If you want Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to be the first, in my opinion, he should be the first non-quarterback taken. The value of offensive line might override that, but you need to be in a position where you have to get to 4. And New England needs to be the team in front of you. Because if New England's there, they're not going to take a wide receiver. They're going to take an offensive lineman. And I don't think we should be drafting an offensive lineman in the first round. I think that if you're going to fix the offensive line isn't all that bad. It's just not healthy. And with Tyron Smith and Jonah Williams and Trent Brown and like some really good names in free agency, if we look at the success rate of first round offensive tackles within the first 2 years, it's not that high. Offensive tackles recently have been coming on in year 3 and beyond. You got to think short term with Aaron Rodgers, not long term. And so if that's the case, go and get the wide receiver, the generational wide receiver, and address the offensive line in free agency, because you're going to take an offensive lineman in the middle rounds, and we need a guard, not a tackle, in my opinion. Because if you can get, let's say, Tyron Smith, then you got AVT at right tackle, Laken Tomlinson at left guard, Tippmann at center, and then you go get Van Pratt maybe? Who knows? Zinter?
Interesting, Tigo. Interesting stuff. You have been ejected from the cockpit. Talking Jets with Tigo. Go subscribe to him. Great dude. Great dude. Interesting. If you guys would like to join the call-in show, the number is pinned in the live chat. You could also scan the QR code on the screen. If you'd like to support the channel, support the sponsors of the channel, Underdog Fantasy. They'll match your first $100, 100%. You put $100 in, you get $200 to play with. It's a lot of fun. I've been having a blast with it. It's a whole bunch of parlays and picks, and hires and lowers. I think you guys would have a lot of fun with it. Highly, highly encourage it. Let's move in to some more calls. We've got Carson joining the show. Carson, how you doing tonight, brother?
What's going on, Ryan? What's going on? Can you hear me fine?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Listen, man. I love Tigo. Tigo knows what he's talking about. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know how much tape you watched on Marvin Harrison. I haven't evaluated.
I honestly don't think we're going to be up high enough to get him, and I wouldn't trade up to go get him. That's more my stance on it.
I have not. I'm gonna be honest. I have not evaluated a receiver as gifted as him within the last 3-4 years, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has everything you want in a wide receiver. He has speed. He can win on man. Great route running ability. He's 6 foot, I believe, 4. And you just don't. If you want to make a wide receiver in a lab, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. He's the guy you make in a lab. If we want him, we have to be top 4, top 3, top 4 minimum. And you had a caller earlier, Eli. I love to disagree with Jets fans about certain takes on things, especially draft.
Let's
related.
go. Let's hear it.
I do so much, homework on drafts and stuff. This is one of the deepest drafts, especially in terms of blue chip talent, that I can remember. This is a draft you want to have a premium pick in. That's why Chicago is sitting so pretty in the top 5. This quarterback draft, I remember he was talking about the quarterback draft. Why he doesn't like the quarterback draft, I don't know. I mean, there's going to be 6 quarterbacks going in the first round, I think. Probably,
wow, you think
minimum
that many
5?
Go? I think Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix are both like squarely in it now. And that would be 5.
I think Caleb Williams, Drake May, Penix, Nix, and Jaden Daniels go in the first round. Easy.
And McCarthy's probably like a toss-up.
JJ McCarthy's fringe 2, late 1. Also, Brock Bowers, another gifted tight end. But hearing what other callers have to say about addressing needs in terms of free agency draft and everything, just to kind of round out my last 30 seconds here. Sure. I would say for free agency purposes, I would stick to the O-line. I agree with Tigo in terms of addressing the O-line and free agency, just because of the premier talent at the skill positions in this draft. Now, with Rodgers moving forward and him being 40 years old, there is a lot of whereabout you Caleb Williams and Drake May are very enticing if you're in the top 5. But
sorry, Carson, you've been ejected from the cockpit. I see what he's talking about. He's talking about some quarterbacks. Could be enticing. And I do think there is an understanding that it could definitely be enticing at that particular spot in the draft. Do you go with the wide receiver? Tego and Carson both seem to think going with Marvin Harrison Jr. is the way to go. Let's move on. Let's go over to Connor. Connor, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Hanging in there. How you feeling about this Jets season and then our off season coming up?
So I don't want Rodgers to play at all this season. I
Mm-hmm.
think behind this O line right now, there's a chance he gets re-injured, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't see him at all next season.
I think that's a big concern you have to have. But would it at least give you a little confidence? Like, is it worth rolling the dice on him next year, hoping he's going to be the quarterback he was of old? Or do you think there's value in seeing what he could be so we can make a decision maybe on a quarterback in the draft? Or is it not as important as that?
I'd rather just wait for next year, behind this O line especially. And if he
Mm.
plays last 2 games of the season, and he just plays terrible, Jets fans are gonna go crazy. We're upset enough with how we've been playing this season.
We're going to lose our mind if he plays poorly, but I do think I would like to know if he's going to play poorly. I think that's an important question to answer, especially if we wind up seeing over the next few weeks, you get like Dwayne Brown come back, Mekhi Becton comes back, Tittman's getting healthy, McGovern might come back. Like if you start to get healthy around the time of the final 3 games of the season, I can see the temptation of wanting to put Rodgers out there, but I definitely stand by you, Connor. I'm terrified to put him out there. I really am.
But for the way the draft goes, if Fashanu, or however you say his name, I don't really
Yeah.
know how to pronounce it.
Fashanu.
Yeah, Fashanu, or Alt, or
Mhm.
off the board, I think Jaden Daniels goes to the Bucks before us. For
Ooh, okay.
quarterbacks, I either want Jaden Daniels or Bo
Mhm.
Nix for the first round, or we
Mhm.
wait for the third round and we take Michael Pratt.
Ooh, interesting.
I think if Alt and Fashionau are off the board, I think we
Mhm.
trade back and go for Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy, possibly.
I would like to move down. If the top 2 tackles are off the board and you can get some sort of haul or even an additional first next year to move down into the middle of the first round, because I feel like, at least from the mock drafts I've been looking at and some of the power rankings, it seems like there's another rung of tackles in that like middle first round. And I'm fine getting value in a trade back that might get us a quarterback or at least a second round pick to address another area of need. Um, and I wouldn't have a problem taking the quarterback. Is there any concern if you trade down, take the quarterback, that maybe Douglas and Salah aren't here after next year? Are you concerned at all with the quarterback having 2 regimes in 2 years?
Not really, honestly, not at
Hmm.
all.
I think
I
that
think
happened
it
with
would,
Herbert too. I think Herbert was drafted by the ex-Jet, Anthony Lee.
um,
Anthony Lee?
yeah,
Is that
Anthony
right?
Lynn, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we keep Salah and Douglas. I don't want to get rid of them.
I don't think we'd get a better GM or head coach right now, given the state of our team, if we were to move off of him. I think it would be a mistake. So, Connor,
Yeah,
I completely agree with you.
You're
You have
out of
been
here!
ejected from the cockpit. Boys and girls, call-in number is on the QR code, or you can click the pinned comment in the live chat. I've got Malik, then Angelo, then Hunter, then Matt on the line right now. We're going to go until 10 o'clock, so get your calls in. Let's head over to Malik. Malik, how you doing, brother?
What's up with a big dog? Hey,
Dude, how you
hey, can
feeling
you hear
about
me?
the rest of the season now?
Hey, can you hear me?
I got you loud and clear.
All right. I just want to speak on Joe Douglas.
Sure.
Man, I wish that hate would stop on Joe Douglas. Man, we gotta stop, dude. Hey, we gotta stop this Joe Douglas hate, dude. The problem before Joe Douglas, the problem will always be the offensive line. It's always been a problem. We
That was
we can
supposed to
fire
be his
everyone,
priority
everybody
though.
be.
Like that was his baby, and he's had 5 years to
But
fix it. We're still kind of wondering now.
he's drafting good, but he's drafting good offensive linemen though.
Sure.
Mackay
I'm
Becton
playing
wasn't
devil's
injury
advocate here.
prone, man.
I
Joe
do
Tip,
align myself with
hey,
your thinking.
Joe Tippmann was a stud, man. AVT, he can play every position. Like,
Hmm.
dude, he's trying. He tried for Orlando Brown. He's
Hmm.
trying, man. And at the end of the day, what I will say is another thing I want to speak on is I listen. I agree. I know Jets fans are emotional. I'm emotional, but what I will say is, dude, We banked on Aaron Rodgers. I get it. We should have got another quarterback, like people say. I don't think so because it was always Super Bowl or bust, man. We want to make a playoff run. Like we're here for the Super Bowl, bro. Like we don't want to make the playoffs. We're here for a Super Bowl, dude. Like it was once Aaron Rodgers was out, it was over with. Like it was over with, bro. Like it don't matter
Now,
what
but
happened.
if
It
we
was
had the
over, bro.
backup and we just got to the point where we could have Aaron Rodgers, that's where people are kind of coming at this because now
Oh, no.
normally you get your quarterback lost to an Achilles, he's not coming back in a season like that. This is a very unique situation where a
Right,
backup quarterback, if he
right.
could have kept you afloat till the end of the season. Now maybe
I
it's not
mean,
possible because the offensive line is in shit shambles
that's
anyway. Any quarterback would have looked the
cool,
same.
but you see that's cool. But you see the teams that's playing in the league right now. There's so many great teams right now, bro. Aaron Rodgers can't just
We're
come
the only
back
one to
and
beat
think
the
he's about to
Eagles. We can
be
be a
Aaron
great
Rodgers in
team.
20.
Maybe we have the quarterback.
Yeah,
maybe we're
we can
fine.
be a great team. We can be a great team, but the offensive line has to be great. That's the problem. No matter what, the offensive line has to be great. You know what I didn't know, and I know the time is about to end, but you know what I didn't know? Listen, I'm a new football fan. That 2012 team with Kaepernick, guess where the offensive line was ranked? Number
Oh, I'm
one.
sure it was towards the top.
Number one. Number
Yeah,
one.
dude.
You know, that's
Offensive line
this.
is
So
huge.
we
It just
gotta.
makes everyone so much better. You get your quarterback, more time to throw the ball. It gives your wide receivers more time to get open. It gives your running back bigger holes to run through. Like everyone is better with a good offensive line. So there is definitely no argument from me
And
there.
one more thing before the time ends, I want to speak on one more point. The
Go
one more
for it.
point I want to speak on is the Brees Hall thing.
Mhm.
Like I said, we was just speaking on the offensive line and things of that nature. But what I will say is this, man. Like we got to chill on Brees Hall too, man. He at the end of the day, he's coming off of a Achilles, I think, right? Was it an
It
Achilles
was
or
an
ACL?
ACL.
What was it? ACL, right?
ACL injury in
He's just
Denver
coming
last
off.
year.
Right, he's just coming off of AC. He's just coming off of ACL, and the offensive line isn't giving him any favors. And if anybody, and I will say this, LaFleur should be here right now, because at the end of the day, he was scheming guys open, dude. That
I
offensive
agree. I
line
think
couldn't
he's a much
protect
better
Zach for
offensive
shit,
coordinator
dude.
than
Like
I think
they
he's a
couldn't
much better
protect him
offensive
for
coordinator
shit.
than Hackett.
And at the
I
end of
like
the day,
Hackett the person more than I like LaFleur the person, but I like LaFleur the coordinator more than that. Malik, thank you so much for the call. You've been ejected from the cockpit. We've got Hunter joining the show. Hunter, how you doing tonight, dude?
Doing pretty good. Black Friday game.
It's a relative term, right? Relative.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the first one ever, and we're, of course, the ones
It's the butt of the joke.
Yeah, perfect. The pick six will be playing as much as the butt fumble, but it is what it is, 99 yards. Anyway, as far as off-season goes, I'm really thinking, if you want to build this offensive line, you do it through him, I think. A lot of people want a wide receiver, and I understand the points that the offensive line isn't as bad as people say. It's just injury prone. But, I don't know that he's been injured throughout his college career.
Dude, I like the idea of going healthy, like big offensive linemen, like just build a wall in front of Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm. And, maybe Devontae, but I really do like Mike Evans. I really do like him. I think he'll cost us a little bit less, at least draft-wise, because we do need to build up the offensive line, like you said. As far as quarterback goes, obviously roll with Rodgers, but I think there's a dark horse in the draft. Sam Hartman going with the Notre Dame theme.
Ooh.
That dude's got like full 4 years of film, and he was in the Heisman running, I think, his first junior year, I want to say, because he's been in for a while. But he's one of those guys that's got a lot of film. He's pretty mature. He's a little bit older, but still pretty young. Lots of film, good decision maker. He reminds me a little bit of Romo. Knows when to use his legs. When the line breaks down, he can continue the play while keeping his eyes downfield and actually make it throw. And I feel like that is something that this team's missing, because Zach, when he runs, he'll keep his eyes downfield, but he doesn't really know what he's looking at. And I think that's where a lot of stuff breaks down for us. And sure, keep Zach, make everybody happy or whatnot, save yourself the money from cutting him, but having Hartman sitting there learning from Rodgers, I think, could be an amazing thing. But one thing
Now,
about the
where is
O-line,
he? When is he supposed to go? What's his like draft stock? Where are they looking
Hartman,
at him? Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. He hasn't really broken. I don't even know if he's like rated as a top 50 prospect. He's having a little bit of a down year. He played at Wake Forest
Mm-hmm.
for, I think, his first 4 years, transferred to Notre Dame just this year with Marcus Freeman. But in Wake Forest, he was putting up numbers against the really good Clemson teams. Because he was ACC, so they were going against Clemson. Louisville was kind of catching on.
Florida State.
They put him in some good matchups, and he did put up some good numbers, but it was the decision making that I saw that I really liked. Just the kind of maturity that he had.
Interesting. Hunter, thank you so much for the call. You've been ejected from the cockpit. I like the late round quarterback option because I don't really care what picks we make with the later round. I want guys that could be high upside level players, and if that's a quarterback that can give you some type of hope, I'm all about that later on. I just don't think you go early draft. You'd really have to decide that Rodgers is not going to be the guy beyond next year. And you got to love the quarterback. I'm definitely more aligned with the offensive line side of things. But let's go over to Matt. Let's see what Matt has to say. How you feeling, Matt?
Yo, what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing all right. Where are you on this offseason talk, and what do you think about the current state of the Jets?
So the current state, I don't think we're gonna win another game unless Rodgers comes back.
Mm-hmm.
But for the off season, I mean, it's tough because there's a lot of receivers in free agency, and I feel like we're gonna get a top 8 pick. And here's the thing that's tough with us. So I think we're gonna get a receiver in free agency, so that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think those two linemen are gonna be there because I think we're gonna get like the 8th overall pick, and I think they're both gonna go top 6. So I honestly think the most realistic thing that will happen is a trade down scenario, because I think there's a lot of tackles between like 12 to 18 that can go, like the
I
one from
agree.
Alabama. I think there's
Georgia.
another one. There's like another two. I just forgot their name.
I think
And
it's
I think
Alabama,
if you can-
Georgia, and is it Washington maybe? It might be Washington, I think.
wasn't it Washington State?
I think you might be right. Yeah, so it's J.C.
Yeah, it was
Latham
something
from
like
Alabama. I know there's a kid from Georgia in there, and I think you're right, but it's somewhere in that like mid, like 12 to 24, somewhere in there.
Yeah, but like, so I honestly like that option because with this quarterback class, there's going to be a team trading up, and I think if you're able to still get a really good tackle who could help, and then get another second round pick too, so then you could draft a receiver in that round, or if you want to take a quarterback in that round too, because that would give you a lot of flexibility to do stuff. So I think we will trade down eventually, but like yet again, we're not like we still have like 6 more weeks of football to play, so like everything could change. Because let's say like Rodgers comes back and then we win 3 games, 3 games in a row, and then we have like the 12th overall pick, and then like we don't need to trade down or anything. So like anything could happen if Rodgers comes back. I don't
Yeah,
want
what
him
do
to
you do
come
if you
back,
wind up
but
in like that mid-tier? Like, are you still just taking the tackle, or is there another position that comes into mind? Like, does receiver become a little more attractive outside of the top 10?
yeah, I mean it would basically just be a trade down scenario, but you just don't get any picks basically. But I think, believe it, I think Rodgers will come back, but because I think he'll come back, because he might need to save their jobs, because like they got him to go there, and he might come back just to play for Hackett and Salah to save their jobs, because they're really on the hot seat right now. And like, yeah, obviously you can't win without a quarterback, but at the same time though, like it's been like Salah's had a bunch of opportunities now, and he rolled with Zach, and it just hasn't been working out.
Now, do you think Simeon would have been the right play? Because I don't think Boyle's the right play. I feel like between at least Boyle and Zach was the correct quarterback to have in there.
I think if you were going to roll with Zach, that was fine, because I don't think either of them are a good option. But I think Simeon, when you just look at their career stats, Simeon was better than Boyle. So like, why are you going with the guy that's worse? It just didn't really make a lot of sense.
I'm telling you, I think they're protecting Hackett. I think they're going to roll with Boyle, obviously, this week. And then I think they're going to be like, oh, we're going to try Simeon. And they're going to try him for 2 weeks. And they'll be like, oh, well, Rodgers is back, so it's clearly not Hackett's fault. And then Rodgers is going to make things look decent.
Yeah, and that's
That's
what they're
my
gonna
guess.
do.
Matt,
Yeah, I agree.
thank you so much for the call.
That's it.
You've
You're
been
outta
ejected
here.
from the cockpit. Boys and girls, if you'd like to call in, the call-in number is on that QR code on the screen. You can scan that, or you can click the pinned comment in the live chat. I've got Jet Clown Dave on the line. Dave, how you doing tonight?
Hey, what's going on, Ryan, man? It's a sad day that it's come to this, huh?
Dude, it's rough. We're already talking off season. Got the tankathon thing
Yeah.
on the screen. Got the draft prospects already there.
I had my Jason mask preseason. I was talking shit about what's that guy, Sean,
Sean
whatever his name,
Payton.
Peyton.
Hell yeah.
And I couldn't find. I don't have any clown masks, so this is the closest thing I could find. But I did order one. I'm ready to go on a couple of shows
like
with a
it.
clown mask. And I just can't do this thing anymore, man. This Tim Wilson and Zach Boyle and I don't even know. These guys are clowns, man. It's fucking, I'm over Rogers, the whole thing, bro. Like these guys, this whole thing, it's just I can't take it anymore, man. I just can't take it anymore, dude. So
So
I
what's
mean, what
the
are we
right
gonna
move?
do? Man, I can't even. I feel like, you know what it feels like. It feels like whatever we do, we're screwed. I just feel like no matter what, like we just never had an offensive concept, offensive minded coaches, offensive mind. Like even since like the Rex Ryan days, like everything's been defense, defense. We rarely put up more than like 30 points, maybe once a season. I mean, it's very difficult to watch, dude. And then you watch the game like the Eagles and Bills last night. How the fuck did we beat those two teams? Like it's like,
We beat the
dude,
Eagles and the Bills. And for some reason, like, they can score a zillion points and we can't do anything.
I just can't, man. I just can't take it, man. You see this Boyle guy, and it's like, and honestly, I'm starting to think that at first, I thought Zach was really trash, and he is, but I think we just ruined the kid. I think he had a potential, man. He's got talent. I just think we can't develop quarterbacks. We have no fucking no offensive schemes. Hackett is complete trash, dude. Complete trash. Like I'm sorry, man. Like I'm over Rodgers too, man. I'm over the whole thing, man. I think we should just disband the whole team, like just defunct the team, bro. That's where I'm at, bro. No, I mean that's obviously an exaggeration. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. What's gonna fix it, bro? It's just, it's just like
Sweating in there.
whatever I'm gonna just leave you with that. Bro, you saw how excited I was before the season. I told you I was like, dude, I don't know, man. We got to be careful being overexcited, man. And like 4 plays into the season, the Jets curse. I believe in the Jets curse. I didn't believe in it before. I fully believe in the Jets curse now, man.
You think
It's like
Namath's got to get chopped down?
nothing, dude. Nothing good comes to us, and it's just sad, man. My loyalty will always be there. You know, I have the ink on my chest. I showed you that shit, bro.
Hell
Like
yeah.
my loyalty's there, bro. I went from L.A. to MetLife. I went to Vegas.
Dave,
I got.
boom! You've been ejected from the cockpit. Dave passionately hiding his face because he's had it. Rafi comes in, says, I'd rather Jets sign Mike Evans over Devontae. I hope that's where Joe Douglas stands as well. Mike Evans and T. Higgins are far more attractive options to me than Devontae Adams. But every time I put a poll in the live chat where it says, are we going to make a move for, or should we make a move for Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, or T. Higgins? Everyone, like 60% of people take Devontae Adams. I'm shocked. Like genuinely shocked. I'm with you, Rafi. Chuck Lagana comes in. Says, I don't think Rodgers will play next year. He will sign with the NFL Network or CBS as an analyst. So would he just forego his money? Give it back to the Jets so we don't have an enormous dead cap hit? I get the feeling he wants to play. I don't think he wants to go off like this. There is some, if he didn't want to play, if he was like, hey, I'm done, like it's not going to work out, then I think you can reasonably fire Douglas and Sal at that point. I think you have to assume Rodgers is coming back, though, and you probably keep everyone intact. That would be my guess. Bino says Rodgers will come back to prove to whoever he thinks is against him being able to be wrong. Playoffs are lost. Draft position is key now. So he is trying to prove the doubters wrong. I think there is some value in seeing what Rodgers is with this team before making critical decisions this offseason. And since we're going to have such a high draft pick, I think it's reasonable to see what you have in the quarterback in case you needed to make the decision on a quarterback in this draft. I don't think people should be completely dismissing the idea of going for quarterback in the first round. I just think offensive lineman is far more likely given the position that we currently find ourselves in. I've got Fabian and Anthony D lined up on the phones, but I want to go to Cuddy first. He says 185 people watching. Only 80 likes. Hit those milk thumbs. Boys and girls, hit those milk thumbs. Thank you, Cuddy. Always, always appreciated. Let's go over to Fabian. We're going to go to Fabian first. Fabian, how you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How's it going? So I don't know if you can see me or not. I'm outside.
Oh, I got you. You're loud and clear.
Yeah, what a shit show this season was, bro. You were just talking about Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to go conspiracy. A few weeks ago, he said he wasn't going to come back unless they were in it, and all of a sudden that's changing. I'm thinking maybe he's trying to save Hackett and Salah, and maybe if they show
he's also
something,
trying to recoup some money for the organization. It's no surprise he's trying to come back for the final home game. That would be a clunker of a game from an attendance perspective if it's Tim Boyle at the helm.
Yeah, especially on Christmas Eve. Yeah, that's going to be a shit show. Now, as far as what I would do if I'm Joe Douglas, I would give Joe Douglas a pass only because what I see on the field, the talent I know they have isn't what I'm seeing on the field, which is why I think they're underachieving. Even though I have my issues with Joe Douglas, I would just listen. If this continues to the end of the year, Hackett goes, Salah goes, and I go, listen, Aaron, you have no choice. You're with us. You're a 40-year-old quarterback coming off an injury. We're going to make you part of the process of maybe finding a coach, maybe that, but this isn't sustainable. The offensive coordinator is just, I've never seen anything like it. So vanilla. 2nd and 10, run the ball. 2nd and 10, run the ball. 2nd and 10, run the ball. I don't know, man.
All the time. It's like anytime you get an incompletion on first down, it's like fucking clockwork. It's going to be a run up the gut on 2nd and 10. And you're in 3rd and long.
Yeah, and Manila too. Nothing fancy with the run.
That is.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but yeah, it's not even, and nothing fancy with the run, just up the gut, up the middle, and Salah's just lost the whole team. They just don't play like. I don't give effort like, oh, everyone doesn't stop running or chasing guys down. To me, like when you give up is like when Sauce suplex Diggs. That's giving up. That's
Clemens
like, I don't give a fuck about the team. Yeah, it's not dogging it because they're no 1% of the players in the NFL dog. No one's ever going to dog you because they're worried about their paycheck. But when you lose confidence in the team is when you go into like I said, when Sauce does that or when Michael Clemens is flipping now, where it's not about the team anymore. And that's where I think Salah lost the team. Whenever or wherever it was, it's gone.
Now, do you think there's going to be a little period of if Rodgers comes back and the locker room's better and the team like looks better, like is there a coach you sort of see on the horizon that you would want to replace Salah with, or is it like do you think it could be rebuilt over the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think it can be rebuilt. I think there's enough time where maybe they go 4 out of 6, but then in every game they're showing something. It could be. I don't know about who's on the horizon. I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. I mean, I saw Frank Wright and I was like, he's an offensive coach, but a guy who gets fired in back-to-back seasons. If you would have told me last year.
Yep.
Yeah,
I was like, OC, here we go. Fire Hackett, bring in Reich, right?
Oh yeah, the OC, yeah, definitely not as a head coach because you can't bring in someone who's getting fired back-to-back years as a head coach. But yeah, what do you think about that?
Fabian, you are ejected from the cockpit. Boys and girls, we're going to go over to Anthony D. Anthony D., how are you doing tonight, brother?
Ryan, how we doing, buddy? I'm a lot
I'm
better
hanging
than
in
you.
there. I'm thinking about the offseason already. And not even like, I know Rodgers could be coming back, but I'm already turning my attention to brighter things.
This is our problem as Jet fans. Every November, December, that's all we have
Mm-hmm.
is to look to the future.
It's
That's
hope, right?
really
Like they just try to
that's
sell us hope. That's all it is.
that. No, they're not even selling it to us. We seek it ourselves.
We do. We definitely do.
It's what we do to comfort ourselves during this perpetual misery that is
Now, what do
being
you
a
think
Jet
we
fan.
do to rise above that misery?
I think I know what should be done, but it can't be done because you're totally invested in Aaron Rodgers.
Mm.
You see, and we spoke about this before, when they got Rodgers, the mentality should have been we're totally in. They were not totally in. Okay, let's just look at a team in our division. No other teams but just this one, the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
Every move the Dolphins have made over the last 2 years has been we're going for it. Even as much as taking the Jets' backup quarterback, we're going for it. We're adding these pieces. They make sense. Yes, they haven't had the injuries that we have besides the quarterback, but that's not it this year. But look at their team building philosophy. Not that we had to be like them to throw the ball all over the place or whatever. But every move that they've made, they've been making moves that progressively are looking to be a playoff contender. When you go and get an Aaron Rodgers, you can't half-ass it with your history because this is what it could look like. We know this as Jet fans. We've seen young players be here before where we've had the hope and we get that young player and we match him with that young player. Before I came on the show, a name popped into my head as a young player from yesteryear, James Hasty.
Don't know who that is.
James Hasty was a quarterback from the Jets 1988 through 1996, I think. He was in that sauce vein, not drafted as high, but when we got him, it was like, oh, we've got these young pieces, here we go. James Hasty got so disgusted. The last game against that Miami fake spike, he tanked it, the rest of the team tanked it. He never played with the Jets again.
Dude, Anthony D., you've been a Jet from the cockpit. Boys and girls, call-in number is on the screen. You can scan the QR code to access the call-in number, or you can click the pinned comment in the live chat. If you guys want to support the stream, you can either send in a super chat, or you can click the Underdog Fantasy link in the description if you want to have some fun with some parlays, some prop bets, things of that nature. Use promo code JETS247. We'll get you a 100% match for your first deposit up to $100. I've had a lot of fun with it. Don't tell them, because I would have been playing without it. But I very much appreciate them supporting the show. And if you guys do like doing that sort of stuff, if you use the code, it doesn't cost you anything more. Help support the show. Let's take a ride through the comments section. JT99 says, Joe Douglas has been good overall, but has had a really bad year. Other than Morstead signing and draft class this year, jury's still out, but McDonald has to develop. Tippmann looks good. The rest to be determined. The rest sucks. So, Morstead signing's good. Zerline signing, good. I think we had to sign Zerline too. I'm pretty sure we signed both guys to 1-year contracts. It's rough. The draft class, McDonald looks like he's going to be good, but he's a situational pass rusher. So he's one of those guys that you're relying on for the future, not so much for the now. I like Tippmann. I think he's going to be a good player. The rest we just have not really seen. Carter Warren looks like solid depth so far. I can appreciate that. Let's head over to Bundu. Bundu, sorry. How you doing, Bundu? Guest has muted themselves. Please unmute yourself. Would love to talk to you. Mr. Bundu going once. Going twice. Boom. You're out of here. Come on. Make the audio work. We got 17 minutes left in the call-in show. Should the Jets go after an offensive tackle? Should they go after a quarterback? What are you thinking for the rest of this season? Should anyone be canned at the end of the season? Do you want to see Rodgers play? Do you want to see him not play? There's too much at stake. And there's correct decisions, and there's wrong decisions, and there's like bad sides of either decision that you make. There's not one correct answer in this. I can understand the positives with either decision, firing, not firing, seeing Rodgers play, not seeing Rodgers play. As I talk to more and more people, I want to see Rodgers play. I don't want to jeopardize next season. But I do want to know if Rodgers looks poor at the end of this season. Because I think that may dictate some of my moves. Like maybe you're more likely to go after someone like a T. Higgins rather than a Mike Evans if you think Rodgers may not have enough in the tank. Maybe that's a decision you look towards. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that could be answered here. Jet Engine comes in. What's up, dude? Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, JD has done more long-term damage to the Jets than Gase, Idzik, and Mack combined. The coddling of Zach Wilson has wasted 2 full years of top defense. Yes. Yes. I think they tried to not go to Zach Wilson this year. They obviously wanted to make the trade for Rodgers. They just should have had the backup quarterback. I see what their gamble was, but the minute you wound up losing Rodgers for the year or for such a long duration of time, you should have brought in someone else for a quarterback. I disagree with you that he's done more long-term damage because I think we have more long-term pieces than we would have had under the Gase, Idzik, and Mack careers. Like you remember, we had Marcus May, Jamal Adams, Leonard Williams, Sam Darnold. It's a very different team now. Very different team. All right, we got Bundu calling back in. What's up, dude? How you doing tonight?
Hey man, how you doing? My audio was bad the other time, but I'm back in.
I'm glad to
But
have you.
basically, what I've been thinking, I've been a fan since 2009. I'm 23 years old, and when I first started becoming a fan, I witnessed those 2 AFC Championship appearances, one of the greatest moments ever.
Sure.
But I realized this season, Zach Wilson has been bad since his rookie year, and we saw who he was last season. So I'm not even upset about how he was playing this year because we knew who he was, even though he showed signs of greatness this year. But most of the time, I feel like our issue is with the offensive line because our offensive line has been shaky since 2017, and the owner, Woody Johnson, isn't he's not doing too much to help us out there. Joe Douglas, I still feel like can stay on the roster. He can stay with the team next year, but Robert Saleh has to go. Daniel Hackett has to go. Aaron Rodgers can stay, but we need to draft a quarterback in probably our 3rd round to have him be a backup to Aaron, and then we pick up a veteran quarterback to be 3rd string. That's all we got to do, and we just have to be humble because I realize, we have DJ Reed talking about us being the 85 Bears and Sauce Gardner going back and forth with people. I feel like we're just not focused as a unit. We're not focused as a team, and we have a lot of work to do because I feel like this season humbled us because even without Aaron Rodgers, we still had enough talent to make a playoff push, and just the way we've been playing has been very pathetic. No excuse.
Now, who would you target if you're going to move on from Robert Saleh and Hackett? Because I don't necessarily disagree, because I think you can call Rodgers bluff and say, hey, you're going to be playing this year for the $50 million or $40 million, whatever his contract is or whatever money he's getting this year, and still set yourself up with a coach that could take his quarterback this year to learn behind Rodgers for at least a season.
Well, I've been watching a lot of Philadelphia Eagles, how they play. I feel like we should target their offensive coordinator to be our next head coach because we need an offensive-minded coach. I know
He's
our
a
last
fast riser
offensive-minded
too.
coach. Yeah, it's like I know our last offensive minded coach didn't work out, which is Adam Gase. But I feel like since we have such a great defense and so much potential there, we need offensive minds all across the room, all across the building, all across the stadium. We need offense because our offense has been bad for God knows how long. Even when we had Sanchez, our offense was bad. Gino, offense is bad. The only time I've seen a quarterback play well with us in my lifetime, of
John
course, is on
Morton,
the
our offensive coordinator with McCown and then like Fitzpatrick. Who was our
Fitzpatrick.
OC with Fitzpatrick? I can't even remember who it was
I
now.
can't remember that one. We were pretty good offense. We had 2,000-yard receivers and 1,000-yard rusher. Like our offense was cooking that year.
Dude,
That's what we
it's been like
need.
a long time. It's like unnaturally long time for how long we've been bad at. Chan Gailey, there's the name that we were looking for.
Shane Gelly, I remember him.
Bundu, you have been ejected from the cockpit. Jet Engine drops in again, says, just wait until Garrett, Sauce, and Hall ask for a trade or release like James Hasty and Rob Moore in the mid-90s. So I think that's the biggest thing you have to be concerned about, because if Rodgers doesn't come back, I don't know if Garrett Wilson wants to learn with a rookie quarterback. I don't know if Brees Hall wants to deal with a rookie quarterback. Like, you need Rodgers to come back. And I think having some faith in him and seeing him play this year, maybe that is the best decision. That is absolutely horrifying. I wonder if Rodgers, to some degree, wants to know who or how he could play this year to make a decision on the future. Because maybe he just feels like he's tapped out, if there were any doubts in his mind at all. But I think you got to have Rodgers come back for next year if you don't want to have things blow up with Garrett, Sauce, and Hall. You can't waste their primes. Can't waste their primes. Justin Crazy comes in with a super chat, says, who are the top 3 wide receivers and offensive linemen in this draft? Then we'll go over to Sonny from Long Island. So let's go over. I'm going to use Tankathon just because I have it pulled up right now. So right now, the top 3 wide receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., you've got Malik Neighbors, LSU. So Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously Ohio State. Malik Neighbors, LSU. And Keon Coleman, Florida State. Those are going to be the top 3 wide receivers on most people's boards. Most people's boards. Top 3 offensive linemen, you're talking Joe Alt, Notre Dame, Olu Fashanu, Penn State. Either one of those guys would be elite ads for the New York Jets. Those are my top 2 players on my board right now for us. Beyond that, probably either a J.C. Latham, Alabama. Now on Tankathon, a little bit further down, they got the Oregon State tackle, Fuaga. Am I pronouncing that right? Fuaga. And then they got Graham Barton out of Duke and Amarius Mims out of Georgia. So there's a few tackles if you wanted to trade down. I do like the trade down option a lot. I would say I would go for Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu. Either one of those 2, but my third option, I think, would be to trade down rather than going with a wide receiver or something along those lines, just because I think we get wide receiver in the free agent period. So Justin Crazy, that's my thoughts on that. All right, let's hop over to Sonny from Long Island. Sonny, how you doing tonight, dude?
Hey, Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there. How you feeling about the offseason and the rest of this season?
Not very good. I'll say that. But I mean, going forward with this, you already have Rodgers on the roster. Uh, if you go ahead and fire the coach and the coordinator, and you draft a quarterback early, you're essentially giving up on Rodgers at that point. So
I
I
agree.
think the team has still got that dream, that keep that hope alive with Rodgers, with that season that we were promised. So they're going to have to keep that coaching staff together. You can't draft a quarterback in the first round. A lot of that talk is nonsense. You need some O line in the first round. You need to get a receiver in free agency, whoever it may be. Adams or Higgins or a Mike Evans, any
Mhm.
one of those big name guys, and you just hope that Rodgers can fully recover from this thing, and give you a regular down year for Rodgers, and just an
Mhm.
average Rodgers season. Outside of that, I can understand how everyone is deflated, but I mean, to an extent, the Rodgers thing sort of failed already a little bit.
Yeah, I
It
mean
was
it
all about this year. We weren't
it was
thinking
all about
about
the next two seasons, and we wasted one of them. That's what hurts the
right,
most because time is against us right now.
right. I mean, how much longer can they waste? This excellent defense and some of these young players that we have on this team, and just
Well, I think what you're going to have to do is you got to roll the dice on Rodgers. And then, I think you hope to have him the next 2 years. If you can have him the next 2 years, then you got to start paying your young guys. So you got to pay Sauce and Garrett and Brees, and then you pay them money, and then you draft your young quarterback. I mean, obviously, I would draft the quarterback soon. So
right,
he's not
right.
young going into those years, but he's on a rookie contract for those years.
Right. You want to take a QB, take them late. Don't take them early with first round talent. That would be that you'd be destroying yourself for the upcoming season by doing that.
I definitely fall more on the offensive line in the first round or a trade
Yep.
down. I would consider a trade down for a quarterback. If that's how it kind of fell, but I think
Right.
there's enough tackles in the first round that you can take one
Yeah.
in the middle of
And
let's say
just
you move down to 15 or something like
yeah,
that.
to get back to some of the moves that were done before this season,
Hmm.
drafting Will McDonald. I
Hmm.
mean, look at where the team is now with no receivers.
Hmm.
There's no pass catchers on the team. You went ahead and drafted another pass rusher. I mean,
Now
how you
remember,
feeling
we
about
did
that pick
have
now?
Hardman, we did have Corey Davis, and we were trying to add Odell Beckham Jr. So I don't think we were done at that point in time. But I think with
Right.
hindsight being what it is, JSN absolutely would have been the pick. I mean, even at the time, as soon as the tackle went in front of us, a lot of us were pounding the table. It's got to be JSN. That makes the most
JSN,
sense.
exactly.
So
Yep.
it's frustrating to see. Sonny from Long Island, you have been
You're outta
ejected
here!
from the cockpit. I've got JE1 and Juan on the line next. Boys and girls, these are going to be my last two calls here. So let's go over to JE1. JE1, how you doing tonight, dude?
Hey, what's up, man? You got me?
Hanging in there.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Perfect. All right. How you feeling tonight, dude?
Yeah.
Yeah? So how are you? What do you want to talk about? JE1
That's it! You're
getting
outta
ejected
here!
from the cockpit. We got Juan joining the show. Juan, how you doing tonight, dude?
How you doing, Ryan?
Hanging in there. How you feeling about the rest of this season for our New York Jets? What decisions should or should not be made, and how are you feeling about the draft coming up?
Well, it's gonna be a very interesting draft.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. If we're in the top five,
Mm-hmm.
we need some. We need to trade down.
So you wouldn't even take the tackle if one was there? You think it's more valuable to move out of that pick?
Yeah, because again we don't have a lot of picks, and we
Mm-hmm.
need we need. If
Right, it's
he's
tough.
there,
Like
yeah,
we got some
it's
free
it.
agent money, so we'll know a little bit more after free agency. Like if you get the tackle and you get maybe a decent tackle, and you feel like you're better off going with like a mid-round tackle and you get better value for a trade down, I think that becomes more attractive. Right now, without knowing what free agency is going to be, I feel like I want the top tackles in the draft. That's where I kind of stand on this. Because I feel like those guys go beyond a specific scheme or coaching style.
I agree with that because I hear everybody saying like, we got to fire everybody. We got to fire Salah. We got to fire everybody. But it's like everybody. I understand everybody's mad about it, but I'm like,
does everybody understand like what we were going through a few years ago? Like, do they? Does everybody remember like how bad our roster was a few years ago?
I
Like
don't
Jay,
want to move on from Douglas. I don't think moving
no,
on from Douglas is wise.
it's like Douglas is finally just getting some pieces that, and it's like our roster was so bad, and I think that's why he had to take some of these like kind of risky picks because it's like our roster was so bad. Like, do people forget we used to have a Lamar Jackson on our roster?
Well, we had a Lamar Jackson, yeah, as a cornerback.
Yeah.
But do you think
Yeah.
so? So Douglas obviously went with the high RAS, relative athletic score type players in the draft. You saw Becton, you saw Mims, you saw Ashton Davis, you saw Zuniga, you saw, Elijah Moore, AVT, Zach Wilson, guys that were explosive boom or bust type players. I feel like you're going championship or bust with that, as opposed to going with maybe the safer picks at some of those selections. Like I think Wirfs was probably the safer selection instead of Becton. And I think instead of trading down from Mims, I mean, I guess Claypool hasn't really worked out. I think there was one other receiver in there that we missed too. But it's
Yeah, but I
definitely a
think
boom or bust
yeah,
type.
but at that time, I think he definitely did that. But I think now he's gonna take more of a safer pick,
Mm.
and
So you think it's
he
going to be the
definitely,
lineman, or you think it's the trade down?
if he's in the top 5, he's gonna probably take the safer lineman. But if he's anything less than that, he's gonna trade down. And then in the free agent market, I think there's maybe one or two sleeper like dark horse receivers that you might be thinking of, Ryan. I will keep an
Mhm.
eye out. Maybe is maybe DK or even Gallup in the
DK
Cowboys.
just signed a contract like 2 years ago. I don't think he's getting traded or anything. Juan, you've been ejected from the cockpit. All right, we got Jet Engine 1. Got his camera all figured out. Jet Engine 1's calling in. How you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, Ryan? How you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there. I got my patch right here too that you gave me. It's sitting on my desk.
Nice, bro. So yeah, a little calmer than the last time I talked to you because it's
Sure.
kind of all over that. We all went over the waterfall already.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now the biggest thing we need to do is kind of figure out, obviously, what are we going to do moving forward? What's the future plan? I think that this year we just all agree it's a wash, regardless of if Aaron comes back.
Mm-hmm.
If he comes back, if he can last a couple of games, feel good, look good, I think that could be good for the team moving forward, kind of give them something to look forward to, the guys on the team and us, the fans, and around the league. That being said, there's some moves that people keep talking about that I just, Devontae Adams, we do not need to be sending anyone a number 1 pick for a wide receiver who's 30, 31 years old. Just if you're going to be picking somebody up in free agency that's going to cost you more than a bag of balls and a couple of, maybe a 7th round pick 2 years from now, it needs to be an offensive lineman. We've Mekhi Becton is a mess. He's not going to be back. From what I've understood, the feeling in the building is that it's going to be a mutual parting. I don't even think that there's going to be any kind of tag made there. He was the wrong pick at the time for a lot of reasons that have been borne out over the last few years. Size, leverage, work ethic, blah, blah, blah. Wirfs was the pick, but whatever. We can't go back in time.
Mm-hmm.
So offensive line. That's got to be the play. If they do want to look at a quarterback, here's an interesting name I don't think anybody's really brought up aside from myself. Is you got a kid who's a blue chip prospect coming out in the draft, who's probably going to be available in the 4th or 5th round. That would be Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis has a broken ankle. He's going to be healed in 4 or 5 months. He's probably not going to be able to work out at the combine. He was playing at as high a level as anybody in the league right now, including Daniels. And listen, before we go there, Michael Penix is good.
Injuries, though.
Injuries, yes, but listen, the jokes are going to write themselves. We cannot have Penix.
Look at the size of my Penix.
It's look at that Penix to cunts. I mean, no,
yeah, right.
I mean that's the last thing the Jets need right now after the Hail Mary. So, Bo Nix, I don't know where he's going to drop. We don't have a second rounder. That kind of hurts us. I think that we need to be looking for ways to kind of pad the roster. Coaching staff needs a change. I don't think it's going to happen, but it needs one. I think that Saleh has lost the team 2 years in a row now, and that is worrisome. He is good at motivating when things are going well, and then when things go to shit, I think the emblematic thing of that is him running down that corridor past Michael Clemens in a fist fight, just head down, going right past it.
Dude, that was a brutal clip.
That was a bad look. If you're a leader, if you grab your guy and you grab him by the collar and you say, "Get your ass back in the locker room. We just got our asses kicked out there." Grant, now the guy he was fighting looked terrified of him, which was the funniest part of the whole
I'm
video.
hoping that Saleh didn't know it was Clemens that was going off behind him, because he was pretty far behind him. But he definitely had his head down, just like moving. Like there was some kind of commotion. He's like, "I'm not having any bit of this. I'm going to the locker room. I'm getting out of here."
Yeah.
Like it felt like he was moving.
I know that they want to keep Rodgers, so they're going to keep Hackett. It's subtraction by addition. And beyond that, right now, let's see what happens next year. That's all I got anymore.
Right? Just got to have hope, got to have faith. Jet Engine, thank you so much for the call. You've been ejected from the cockpit. Boys and girls, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you tonight. I'm going to be back tomorrow, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock with our boys over on Talking Jets. If you guys want to hang out with us, ask us a few questions over there. Definitely looking forward to that. Always love talking with the gang. Hopefully we got Green Bean back. He's been out the last 2 weeks, not feeling so hot. But boys and girls, this is going to be it for me tonight. I'm closing up shop. This is Jets Talk signing off. Jets.
One, two, three.